It tells us that Mike is negotiating a procurement contract for custom thingamabobs. So the first thing we want to do in any of these problems is we want to notice what kind of question it is. There's so many kinds of questions he could be asking us. It's very important for us to identify which type of question it is. And there are certain signals that let you know what you're dealing with. In this case, when you see the word procurement, we're dealing with adverse selection. Or if we're ever trying to get something manufactured for our firm, again, we're usually talking about adverse selection. So then once you've figured out, okay, this is an adverse selection question, now what? Well, remember that you're going to have a participation constraint, which is aimed at the high-cost job. You're going to have a selection constraint, which is aimed at the low-cost job. And you're going to have profit. So those are the three things you need to memorize for adverse selection. And with those three things memorized, you'll be able to answer any of the questions. It just is going to take a little critical thinking. So first, let's take a look at the question. First it says, which of the following are the binding, participation, and selection constraints for Mike's contract design problem? Well, like we said, the participation constraint, it's aimed at the high-cost job. So the price that we pay him is going to at least have to cover his cost. The selection constraint is aimed at the low-cost job. This is the truth-telling constraint. This said that we're going to pay you for a low-cost job, so the left side is the truth because you told us it's a low-cost job, and costs were actually low, and we're going to order a low-cost job's quantity. So this was the truth on the left. On the right was the lie. You told us it's a high-cost job, so we pay you for the high-cost job, but you lied. Costs were actually low. But we ended up ordering a lot smaller quantity. We ended up ordering QH because you told us costs are high. So we want to just make telling the truth, again, more appealing than lying. From here, we're always going to have to match what we know up to the answer choices. So first we plug in for CH, and then we might have to rearrange just a little bit, but that's no big deal. pH minus 3QH is equal to 0 is the same thing as just pH is equal to 3QH. So we match that participation constraint up with the exam choices. Now we look at our selection constraint and we plug in for the marginal cost if it's low, and we see that that's already matched up. So the next question says, what is the quantity specified in the contract option intended for selection if costs turn out to be low? So when you see a question like this, the first thing you want to say is, what are they asking me for? Well, first of all, they could only be asking really about 5 things: QL, QH, PL, pH, or profit. Here they're asking about QL. It said the quantity specified in the contract option if costs turn out to be low. So we're looking for QL. We need to write our constraints first, and we're going to use our constraints to substitute them into our profit function. So the next thing we need to memorize, or at least be really comfortable with writing, is our profit function. Well, again, that's going to be the chance that we have a low-cost job times our total surplus if the costs are actually low. Well, we'll have this total value function, which says and this was given to us in the question, which says we're going to order a lot more quantity. We're going to order QL units and get that much value, and the cost to the firm is going to be PL, the contract payment we pay for the low-cost job. There's a 50% chance we're going to have a high-cost job, and we'll order a lot smaller units, and we'll pay PH. So from here we need to plug in for PL and pH by using our 2 constraints. And notice that you're always going to use your participation constraint in your selection constraint because we have a pH over there. So we're always going to first solve for pH to be equal to 3QH and then plug 3QH into our selection constraint. So now we can go ahead and plug in for PL and pH. And since this question was asking us for QL, we're going to take the derivative with respect to QL. We notice that we can divide the whole thing through by 0.5, and 0 divided by 0.5 is just 0, so we can get rid of that. And we solve for QL to be equal to 8. The next question says, what is the price specified in the contract option intended for selection if costs turn out to be low? So first we identify what are they asking us for. They're asking us for PL, the price of the contract if costs are low. Well, we know that from our constraint, PL is equal to QLs and QHs, so we need to also solve for QH. We've already solved for QL, but we're going to also have to solve for QH to answer this question. First, let's rearrange this constraint. So we have PL is equal to 2QH plus 2QL, and again, remember we already solved for QL to be equal to 8. So we're going to visit our profit function again, but now we're going to take the derivative with respect to QH. Now we can't divide through with the probabilities like we could last time. Well, in this question we could because we have 0.5 and it'll cancel nice, but usually we're not going to have 0.5, so just get used to not canceling out. and distributing that through. But either way, you'll get the same answer. Long story short, we solve through this and we get that QH is equal to 6. So because we found QH and QL, we can now plug them in and solve for PL to be equal to 22.